Welcome aboard, applicants. Let's get to question 3 of June 2013. And by the way, happy Thanksgiving. Okay, let's begin with our call of the question, which is where we always begin with our essays. Now, the call says on number 1, did Barbara enter into an enforceable contract with Sally? Right here, we should immediately know our area of law. And that would be contract law, enforceable contracts. Okay, you get the idea. All right, now number 2. If Barbara entered into an enforceable contract with Sally, what remedies, if any, does she have? Again, call number 2 is dealing with remedies if there's a contract. Okay, let's read. Well, let's first put down what we would start our essay answer with. First, we would say, 1. Did Barbara enter into an enforceable contract with Sally? Question mark. And then under number 2, if Barbara entered into an enforceable contract with Sally, what remedies does she have? Excellent. We can actually start this too by having a party versus party situation. Just Barbara v. Sally, but we'll see if we want to keep with that after we read the question. Okay, now let's read the question. Sally wanted to sell an antique doll that she had inherited. She posted a photograph of the doll on her Facebook page with a note stating, "Last month, one just like this sold on eBay for $650. I'll sell it to any of you for $450. First person I hear from gets it. Otherwise, after 5 days, I'm selling it on eBay. Call me, no Facebook allowed at my job." That same day, Barbara, one of Sally's Facebook friends, saw Sally's post. She believed that the doll might be worth more than $450. She soon learned from a local antique dealer that it was worth $1,500. She used her tablet computer to go on Sally's Facebook page. There, she saw a note posted by Judy, another Facebook friend of Sally, stating, "The doll is worth way more than you think. Don't sell it." Barbara then left a note stating, "I'll take the doll for $450, Barbara." Later, she called Sally and said, "This is Barbara, and I'll buy the doll for $450. Sally replied, "Sorry, you're too late." Barbara looked again at Facebook and saw a new note from Sally stating, "Thanks for the information, Judy. The doll is going straight to eBay." So now we can understand that it is definitely Barbara v. Sally. And these are our 2 questions that are dealing with that party versus party conflict. So let's begin here. We're going to have our shopping list that we're going to go through. Because we're dealing with an enforceable contract, we're only going to be going as far as the contract is formed in our shopping list here. So we got contract contract formation. Then we go into third-party rights, and then down here under if she has an enforceable contract, then we would continue and go to our covenants, conditions, and excuses, and this would be a discharge duty to perform, our breach of contract, and our remedies. Okay. Now, when we're going through contract formation, obviously we're going to be going through applicable law. We're going to be going through the three things that make an enforceable contract: offer, acceptance, consideration. So let's come back up to our question now and start issue spotting. Sally wanted to sell an antique doll that she had inherited. Does this mean anything yet? Well, maybe not initially right off this first read here, but that word antique doll sure pops off the screen to me. And that's just not just an antique. This is not just a doll. This is an antique doll. And anytime I see antique doll, I'm thinking something called unique goods. And when we're thinking unique goods, I'm not only thinking, well, possibly uniform commercial code, but I'm also thinking specific performance. So keep that in mind. Now, Sally, posted a photograph of the doll on her Facebook page with a note stating, last month, one just like this sold on eBay for $650. I'll sell it to any of you for $450. Still, this is all laying the groundwork for an offer. But this right here, the first person I hear from gets it. This is a unique aspect about this particular kind of, I say offer, but at this stage we're dealing with an advertisement. Can an advertisement like this Facebook page posting or note be considered an offer? Well, if it identifies, well, generally first I should say what it generally would not suffice for an offer. Under the exception where an offeree is specifically called out, it would suffice for an offer, and this one does because of this expression here. First person I hear from gets it. And as we all know, when that offeree is identified in that offer, even though it might be an advertisement, which is what we're dealing with here on the Facebook page, it would be an offer. So let's first finish reading. Otherwise, after 5 days, I'll sell it on eBay. Call me. No Facebook allowed at my job. Now, we already know too, what is it the contract concerns? The first sentence gave it to us, that antique doll. So what is it we're dealing with in terms of a contract? A good. And you know what area of law that governs the sale or transaction in goods? Absolutely, the Uniform Commercial Code. So let's put that down right now. Applicable law. Uniform Commercial Code. We want to make sure to define goods. We also want to make sure to talk about merchants because remember, under the Uniform Commercial Code, merchants are held to a higher standard of good faith and commercial reasonableness. Merchants. Now, let's take a look here. Is Sally a merchant? Well, all we know here from the first paragraph, first sentence, we just see that she inherited an antique doll. We don't see that she's actually regularly dealing in antique dolls. Also, from our continued reading of our question here, that same day Barbara, one of Sally's best friends, saw Sally's post. She believed that the doll might be worth more than $450. She soon learned from a local antique dealer that it was worth $1,500. Well, at this point, I mean, the fact that she had to go to an antique dealer to find out what that antique doll was valued at definitely indicates that Barbara was not a merchant. Otherwise, she would have had that knowledge from her regular dealings in antique dolls or her special knowledge or skill pertaining to antique dolls, of which neither are evidence here because, like I said, she had to go to an antique dealer to find out what that doll was worth. So I'm going to say that both parties are non-merchants. So neither party are merchants. Okay. After establishing merchant status, we look at contract formation. We looked at that first offer aspect, or I should say advertisement. And was that advertisement an offer? Well, like we said, it identified an offeree, therefore it would suffice for that general rule that advertisement would not suffice for an offer unless they specify an offeree, which is what we have. So we have that exception. So this particular advertisement would suffice for an offer. Let's see if we have our terms. Okay, do we have a quantity? Yep, we have one antique doll. Okay, time. Well, since we don't have time for performance specified, we can substitute reasonable time. And then interested parties or parties, we know that it's going to be Barbara and Sally. We already know the price, $450. We know the subject matter, antique dolls, our antique doll. Okay, so we have an offer here. And not only was there also an intent to be bound, absolutely. Was there certain indefinite terms like we established? Absolutely. And was this communicated? Yeah, it was posted on Facebook, which is where Barbara read it. Now, so right here, that same day, Barbara, one of Sally's Facebook friends, saw Sally's post, so it was communicated. So we have an offer. Now, was there an acceptance? Oh, and we don't have third-party rights, so we'll rule that out. Was there an acceptance by Barbara? Well, first, let's come up here and take a look at the rest of the question. Now, Barbara, used her tablet computer to go on Sally's Facebook page. There, she saw a note posted by Judy, another Facebook friend of Sally, stating, "The doll is worth way more than you think. Don't sell it." Barbara then left a note stating, "I'll take the doll for $450. Later, she called Sally and said, "This is Barbara, and I'll buy the doll for $450. Sally replied, "Sorry, you're too late." At this point, let's stop the tape there and take a look at this here. Now, when we're looking at this aspect of there, she saw a note posted by Judy, another Facebook friend of Sally, stating, "The doll is worth way more than you think. Don't sell it." Barbara's note at a notebook, left a note. Barbara then left a note stating, "I'll take the doll for $450. $450, Barbara." Was this an acceptable method of accepting the offer? Well, let's take a look at how Sally indicated that the offer can be accepted. Because remember, the offeror is master of the offer and can dictate how the offer is to be accepted. Let's see. Right here, call me, no Facebook allowed at my job. So what is it that Sally is indicating? That Facebook postings in general are not going to be acceptable methods of accepting the offer, but a call, a communication might be and would be reasonable. Let's see if Barbara does this. Later, she called, there's that word again, called Sally and said, "This is Barbara, and I'll buy the doll for $450. Sally replied, "Sorry, you're too late." But here, we're looking at this communication here. So first, let's not go too far too soon here. This communication, and dealing with this communication, this would be an ineffective acceptance. And that would be dealing with the Facebook note. So that would be an ineffective acceptance. The effective acceptance would be the telephone call. Or maybe the conversation, I would say. Conversation with Sally. Okay, so was there an unequivocal assent to the terms of the offer? Well, let's take a look at what Barbara said in the second communication. We've already said that the first communication that Barbara made to Sally, that Facebook posting was an ineffective acceptance. The second attempted acceptance, or second acceptance attempt by Barbara would be effective. Okay, and let's take a look at it. Later, she called Sally and said, "This is Barbara, and I'll buy the doll for $450. Well, is that an unequivocal? Is that clear? Yep. Barbara's being very clear. This is Barbara. And what? Is she being definite and certain? Or I should say, is she unequivocally assenting? In other words, she's agreeing to the terms. Yep, I'll buy the doll for $450. The doll is being called out. The price term is being called out. She's unequivocally assenting to the particular terms set by Sally. This looks like an unequivocal assent to the terms of the offer. This looks like a valid acceptance by Barbara. So right down here, we already indicated this effective acceptance, conversation with Sally. Now, when Sally noted, "Sorry, you're too late," what is this essentially? Not only is this is a fact that can be used more than once here, but what is this primarily? This could be seen as Barbara trying to revoke the offer, okay? So I just want to put a note there that we might be able to say that this was a revocation, okay? By Barbara. I'm sorry, by Sally, excuse me. Now, is this going to be an effective revocation? No. Ineffective revocation by Sally, but just making note of that so that we're using all of our facts from our question. Now, after having established an acceptance, taking into consideration what Sally said, we don't want to forget to talk about consideration. Was there sufficient consideration? Money for a doll, doll for a money, the $450 in exchange for the antique doll in exchange for the $450. Looks good to me. Now, we don't even have a statute of frauds, but if there were, and this would be sale of goods $500 or more, I don't even think it needs any particular discussion here. But just to remember in our minds, we'll just put that in there so that we mentally remember if it's there, we want to talk about it. But it's not there here. It's not there in this instance. So the writing requirement wouldn't even need to be satisfied. But even if that were the case, which is not, it would still be satisfied. Okay, but we don't, because it's $450, not $500. Okay, now conclusion. Do we have, or I should say, did Barbara enter into an enforceable contract with Sally? Absolutely yes. Okay, so now, if Barbara entered into an enforceable contract with Sally, what remedies does she have? Let's take a look. Let's come back up and continue our question. She replied, "I'm sorry, you're too late." What's that? Now, Barbara looked again at Facebook and saw a new note from Sally stating, "Thanks for the information, Judy. The doll is going straight to eBay." Well, you know, the combined effect. Now, before we get too far here, because I don't want to go down to breach before we talk about conditions, if there are any. I don't see that there's any particular conditions here that comes between either party's duty to perform. The other thing is, do we have any promises, like any covenants? No. Do we have any excuses that could play in here from the facts, I should say? Any excuses from the facts? I don't see that either. So do we see any like discharge of the duty to perform arguments? Mainly impossibility, impracticability, commercial impracticability, commercial, financial impracticability, and the frustration of purpose. I don't see that either. So moving on through the consideration and performance aspect, we're going to probably have to slide right into breach of contract. Now, when we're dealing with breach of contract, we got to first lead with anticipatory repudiation, because that's the right to bring the suit. With breach of contract is what the measure of the breach is. This would be what the right to bring the suit in the first place would be, the anticipatory repudiation. What fact in our question indicates that Sally is not going to perform before the time for performance is due? Well, look at this. "Sorry, you're too late." That sounds like she's not going to perform before the time for performance is due. How about this? "The doll is going straight to eBay." Sounds like she's not going to perform before time for performance is due. So the combined effect of the Sally reply on the conversation with Barbara over the telephone, and the new note from on Facebook left from Sally that the doll is going straight to eBay equals an anticipatory repudiation on the part of Sally. Now that we've established that there's a right to bring a contract breach or a breach of contract, we need to establish what kind of breach are we dealing with here: material, partial, or minor. When we're dealing with breach of contract under the Uniform Commercial Code, we're primarily dealing with the perfect tender rule. And since this would be a one delivery situation, a one delivery contract, rather than an installment style contract, the perfect tender rule would fit nicely. Now, has Sally perfectly tendered the doll? Again, we just look at the facts. Sorry, you're too late. The doll's going straight to eBay. It doesn't look like she's perfectly tendered that doll to Barbara. So we don't see that perfect tender has been observed here. Therefore, we have a material breach. Okay, now looking under remedies, which is our last entry, because that also answers our call to question. If Barbara entered an enforceable contract with Sally, what remedies does she have? Let's take a look. Paying special attention to unavoidable costs, or the duty to mitigate aspect, we want to make sure that we make reference that Barbara has to mitigate the damages in some reasonable way. Okay, so we just make sure to mention that in our question. It doesn't indicate here that it does indicate that there are any facts here that I'm seeing that that Barbara observed this duty to mitigate, but we should make known to our readers that that would have to be observed by Barbara. Okay, so that's why I'm putting that there. And then we come down here under expectation damages. Now, under expectation damages, what Barbara would be able to recover. Now, this is really interesting. Okay, up here in our offer, last one just like this sold on eBay for $650. This is a market condition. Okay, now within the market condition situation, we could actually, under expectation damages, the actual benefit of the bargain, the expected profit, one of the ways of measuring that from a buyer's perspective, Barbara's perspective, would be contract market differential. And that would be the difference between $650 and $450, presumably the $200 aspect or the $450 contract price. See that there's a lot of different methods here that I think you could go into under expectation damages. Contract price, which would be $450, or you could do contract price minus the market price, or I should say, excuse me, the market price minus the contract price. Thank you for your patience. Which would be the $200, or what they call as what we call as the contract market differential. And I believe that would be, now she could argue that in a additional aspect, when she found from the local antique dealer that the antique doll was actually worth $1,500, she might be able to take that, the actual value she learned from the antique dealer. Let me bring this down here so we can get all this on the same page. So we could say that the specific performance, yeah, value of antique doll, which would be, well, see, that's the other thing. We could value of antique doll, or if she had to go out and buy a similar one, she might have to pay the $650 or the appraised value of $1,500. So I would throw this up here under cover cost if she had to go out and buy one at the appraised value, which would be $1,050. Okay, but now under consequential, we want to make sure to mention it. Consequential damages, Hadley v. Baxendale. And any particular foreseeable consequence, or I should say any direct damage as a result of the breach foreseeable at the time of contract formation between Sally and Barbara, doesn't really indicate that happened here. So want to mention it in our essay, and briefly note it and then move on. and then go into one of the big remedies here, specific performance. Okay, now would legal damages be adequate? Well, let's take a look here. Does Barbara want the antique doll, or does she want the $450, presumably the contract price? Well, it looks to me like she would want the doll, okay, rather than the $450. Why? Because presumably under the collector value, she could possibly be able to get $1,050. Also, if we're dealing with something that's an antique, one of a kind of thing, and so she would rather have the doll than the money. And that's an argument to be made that legal damages would not be adequate here. Secondly, are we dealing with a unique good? Now remember, land is always unique, but we're not dealing with land here. We're dealing with an antique doll. And we talked about this at the beginning of our discussion. The antique doll, the antiqueness of the doll makes it a unique good because it's a one-of-a-kind, it's a one-of-a-kind kind of item. Family heirlooms would also suffice for this as well, but we're not dealing with that here. We're dealing with the antique doll aspect. And as an antique doll, this would indeed be a unique good. So we'll to put a yes to that. So here, would legal damages be adequate? No. We're dealing with a unique good? Yes. Therefore, specific performance could be observed under the equitable remedy, or sorry, the equitable remedy of the equitable remedy of specific performance. Thank you for your patience with me. And therefore, it could be enforced by Barbara against Sally to have Sally sell her the doll at the $450 price. So, put a conclusion there. And so to summarize our answer here, did Barbara, in the Barbara v. Sally party versus party conflict, did Barbara enter into an enforceable contract with Sally? Absolutely yes. We answered that in the yes. If Barbara entered into an enforceable contract with Sally, what remedies after establishing the breach and what kind of breach? We have the duty to mitigate that has to be talked about. She has a particular couple different expectation damages, primarily the contract price $450 and market price market and contract price differential. I should say market and contract price differential. Thank you so much for your patience. And presumably, one argument may be made the value of the antique doll undercover if she had to buy that doll at the antique price for the $1,050. But that's all under expectation damages. Mainly, the reasonable recovery would be the $450 contract price or the market contract price differential. And then we're going to look down at consequential damages, Hadley versus Baxendale. Note that these are damages that are direct damages that flow from the breach, foreseeable time of contract formation, but they're not here. Neither party could foresee that any particular damage would flow from the breach. Therefore, this would not be an observable remedy. So, and then specific performance, a major remedy in this instance because we're dealing with something that's unique. And would legal damages be adequate? No, because presumably Barbara would want the doll rather than the $450. Are we dealing with a unique good? We just said that absolutely this is a one-of-a-kind kind of item, yes, and therefore specific performance could be brought against Sally as a remedy, and then we would put this under our conclusion. So I hope you had excellent time going through this essay with me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to put a shout out to Chess Cruncher TV. Keep chess crunching, Chess Cruncher. I also want to put a shout out to my Kindle Amazon book, Battling the Big Bad Baby Bar, Essay Basics. Thank you again for tuning in and happy Thanksgiving. God bless.